Hi there, I'm Maris. And yeah, you read that right. My sister's birthday party was booked at my hotel, without my permission. She strutted in with her fiancé's family like she owned the place, then looked me in the eye and told the staff to kick that homeless woman out. That homeless woman was me. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was, my entire family knew. They planned it. They expected me to pay for it, in silence. The second I stepped onto the porch of my parents' house in New Orleans, that familiar ache pressed down on my chest, like my lungs knew to brace before my heart caught up. It was early June, humid, with the smell of jasmine and crawfish hanging in the air. I hadn't been home in nearly 5 months, not because I was too busy, but because I knew exactly how this would go. My mother greeted me with that smile, the one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maris, honey, look at you. Still wearing black, huh?" she chirped, kissing the air near my cheek. "You know, a little color wouldn't kill you." I forced a laugh. "Hi, Mom." Dad was already at the dinner table, half done with his lasagna, eyes glued to his plate like it might solve world hunger if he stared long enough. And then there was Seren. She was lounging on the love seat like she was posing for a photo shoot, draped in a designer dress I'm sure she didn't pay for. Her lips curled into that smug half-smile I'd grown up hating. "Well, well," she said, standing. "New Orleans' favorite mystery woman returns. Did you finally finish alphabetizing your spreadsheets?" I didn't bite. I just nodded and took a seat across from her. The table was set with our mother's best china, which only came out for holidays, interventions, or announcements. That should have been my first clue. Dinner started stiff. Mom complimented the weather, Dad mentioned traffic, and Seren posted a selfie mid-meal, her phone angled to avoid capturing my face. I should have walked out right then. Instead, I took a bite of bread and tried to convince myself this was just dinner. Then Seren stood up. "I have something exciting to share," she beamed, lifting her glass. "My 33rd is around the corner, and it's gonna be iconic, like Kardashian-level iconic." I kept chewing. "I've found the perfect rooftop in the warehouse district. There's a champagne wall, live music, drone footage, a horse-drawn carriage. Think Paris, but with better lighting." She paused for dramatic effect. "Total cost? Just under $150,000. I nearly choked. I set down my glass. She didn't flinch. "And you," she said, pointing directly at me. "Get to make it happen. Come on, sis. It's not like you're doing anything real with your money." The room went quiet. Even the ceiling fan sounded like it stopped turning. I glanced at Mom, waiting for her to shut it down. Instead, she tilted her head. "Sweetheart, it really would mean a lot to your sister. You've been so blessed lately. Isn't it time to give back a little?" Dad kept chewing. Didn't look up, didn't say a word. That's when it hit me. I wasn't family. I was funding. I tried to swallow my rising anger, but it tasted like betrayal. I excused myself from the table before I said something I'd regret. Again. Back at my place, I sat at the kitchen island with a glass of wine and tried to scrub the night from my memory. My phone buzzed. It was Ina, my operations manager, and only person in my life with a working bullshit radar. "Check Seren's Instagram story." I opened it. She'd posted a reel, split screen. On one side, her sipping champagne with her event planner. On the other, a video of my car pulling into my driveway, windows down, paint a little faded. The caption? "When your rich sister lives like she's in witness protection." The comments were already piling up. At least she's not pretending to be someone she's not. "That house screams anxiety." LMF, she drives that? I stared at the screen. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my molars would crack. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell every single commenter exactly what I'd built, what I owned, how I paid for it all with my own 2 hands. But I didn't. I just stared. She thinks this is over a birthday party. She has no idea what she just started. 2 days passed. I didn't return a single call, didn't answer any texts from my family. Ina offered to take my phone and throw it in the Mississippi, and honestly, I was tempted. Instead, I turned off notifications and drowned myself in zoning permits and spreadsheets. My hands worked, but my chest was tight the whole time. The video was still up, still getting likes, still being reshared by people who didn't even know me, people who found it hilarious that I drove a 10-year-old car and didn't flaunt my money like I stole it. "She's not going to stop," Ina said, tapping her fingers on the conference table. "I know," I said, "but she's not the one I'm worried about." She raised an eyebrow, but I didn't explain. I'd seen this coming in pieces, like slow leaks under drywall. But now the wall had cracked, and behind it, the rot was spreading. That afternoon, I was reviewing contracts when I saw a familiar figure through the frosted glass of my office door. My stomach dropped. My mother didn't make appointments. She breezed in like she owned the place, arms full. "I thought I'd stop by," she said, placing a Tupperware of banana bread on my desk. "Still no receptionist? You really ought to make this space more welcoming." I forced a smile. "Hey, Mom." She sat down like she'd been invited. "You're working too hard. You always do, just like your father. Though he was never great with money. You get that from me." I stayed silent. I could feel Ina's eyes on me through the glass, but I didn't call her in. Then Celeste reached into her handbag and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. "I brought something for you to look at," she said lightly, like it was a recipe or a Christmas card. I opened it slowly, expecting nothing. Maybe a thank you note for showing up to dinner. Instead, it was a printout, a budget breakdown. At the top, Saran's 33rd Dream Event. Halfway down, underlined in pink highlighter, venue contribution. Maris Calder, $150,000. Confirmed? My throat went dry. "Confirmed?" I said, my voice sharp before I could stop it. "Who confirmed this?" Celeste's smile didn't budge. "Sweetheart, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. You know Saran doesn't have the kind of money this takes. And your father and I, well, we're on a fixed income now. She's your sister." I set the envelope down like it was laced with something toxic. She humiliated me online. She was being playful. She mocked my life. She's going through a phase. I stared at her. "You're really asking me to foot the bill for the person who just used me as punchline fodder for her followers?" "I'm not asking," she said calmly. "I'm showing you the plan. You've always been the responsible one. This is just what's expected." There it was again. That word. Expected, not requested, not discussed, just decided. I picked up the Tupperware, handed it back. "Thanks for the bread," I said flatly. She looked wounded, like I'd slapped her. "Don't be like this, Maris. You're making it so dramatic." "I think you've confused the definition of that word," I said. She stood up, smoothing her blouse like she'd just closed a deal. "Let me know if you want me to send over the planner's info. You're going to love her. Very boutique." Then she walked out, leaving the scent of her perfume and that damn envelope behind. I didn't tear it up. I didn't scream. I walked to the window, stared at the street below, and let my jaw lock itself into place. They didn't even ask. They just assumed I'd pay for silence. I stood there longer than I realized, frozen in front of the window, watching nothing. The sun was setting, but I didn't notice until the light was gone. Eventually, I turned off the lights, walked through the quiet house, and landed in the kitchen. The banana bread was still on the counter, wrapped in cellophane like it was some kind of peace offering. I stared at it like it might move or speak. My mother baked that same recipe when I got sick as a child. I used to think it meant love. Now, it felt like a warning label wrapped in sugar. I poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and tried to focus on something that wasn't them. Lease renewals, property maintenance notes, payroll, anything. But my hands didn't move. My eyes just stared at the glowing screen until the letters blurred. That's when the memory hit. I was 10. Hospital bed. White sheets, too thin. Machines blinking softly beside me. The beeping was constant. I'd caught some virus that kept me there for over a week, and Mom didn't leave my side. She stayed curled up in that stiff recliner, wrapped in her coat, breathing shallow. "You're the reason I'm strong," she whispered one night, stroking my hair. "You saved me from myself, Maris." I remember blinking at her, scared and small. The next night, I overheard her on the phone with Dad, furious that he hadn't brought the right insurance forms. "We gave up everything for her," she snapped. "I quit my job, Martin. You're working night shifts like a damn mule. I don't care what it takes. We're not leaving her in some god-awful facility." And then, after she hung up, she looked at me and smiled again, like none of it happened. "We gave up so much for you, sweetheart. Just promise you'll never forget that, okay?" I was 10, and I nodded. Back then, I thought it was love, devotion. I had no idea it was a trade agreement. My chest ached as I sat back in the present. My adult self, alone in a quiet kitchen, with a freezer full of frozen dinners, and no one asking how I felt, just what I could give. They never ask, they expect. And if you say no, they remind you what they've done for you. Guilt was always the invoice they sent when I didn't comply. I started remembering all the other times. College tuition meetings where I was expected to understand that Seren's creative path meant she'd bounce between majors while I worked nights. Holidays where my gifts were met with, "Wow, not bad for someone with no husband." Every sacrifice was supposed to come with a thank you note. Except mine. I opened a draft email I'd started to my mother earlier. Something soft, something diplomatic. "I appreciate you coming by. I just wish things were handled more openly." I deleted the whole thing in one stroke. Then I walked to the freezer, opened it, and slid the banana bread inside, right between the frozen peas and an old bottle of vodka. I closed the door without blinking. "I'm not your debt to collect," I whispered. "I'm not your redemption story." I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something solid under my feet. I used to think being needed meant being loved. Now I'm not so sure. The next morning, I was back at my desk downtown, early as usual, before the coffee shop across the street even turned on its lights. I hadn't slept much, but I didn't feel tired. I felt sharp. Like my body had decided it was done wasting energy on emotions and was ready to move in straight lines only. My inbox was full of the usual: client inquiries, floral vendor confirmations, inquiries for fall weddings, but none of it really held my attention. Then Ina walked in, holding a manila envelope like it might explode. "Courier dropped this off 10 minutes ago," she said, her tone flat. "From Seren's fiance's assistant. Labeled urgent, but guess whose name it's addressed to?" She dropped it on my desk. It had my full name printed in elegant serif font, just under the embossed words Monroe Events Group. I opened it slowly. Inside was a thick, glossy contract packet. Heavy paper, gold-trimmed tabs. Very Seren. It looked like a standard reservation agreement for a venue I'd never heard of. The Imperial Deck House, one of those overpriced rooftop venues downtown. They'd penciled in a family contact section, and there it was. Family Financial Liaison, Maris Calder, signature required. It didn't make sense, until I flipped to page 6 and saw it. Small print, tucked into a subclause under liability adjustments. In the event the primary booking party fails to remit payment in full within 30 business days, the listed family contact assumes responsibility for all unpaid balances, fees, and penalties, including legal and collection costs. I blinked, read it again, and then I laughed, short and dry. "She really thought I wouldn't read this," I said aloud. Ina crossed her arms. "She thought guilt would sign it for you." My fingers curled slightly around the contract, not enough to crumple it, but enough to feel it press back. I didn't speak for a while. I didn't need to. I slid the whole packet into my lower drawer and labeled it in my head. Evidence. "You know," I said, "if she put this much effort into managing her own finances, She wouldn't need a backup wallet with my face on it. Ina raised an eyebrow. Want me to shred it? Number let her wonder. I opened my email, composed a new message, and addressed it to Monroe Events Group's assistant. No greeting, no warmth. Subject, contract request. Body, we do not process documents submitted through emotional channels. All future communications must be routed through our legal department. Unsolicited contracts will not be acknowledged. M. Calder. I hit send. Then I opened my calendar, scrolled to next week, and created a new recurring event. Title: Monitor Financial Setups. Family, I stared at the screen for a moment longer, then whispered to myself, that's the last time they catch me off guard. This wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't betrayal. Not anymore. This was business. And in business, I don't scream. I won't scream. I'll build a wall so high, they'll feel it in their bones. Saturday mornings at Somerset used to be my calm. Quiet walkthroughs, clipboard in hand, checking the linens, lighting, and flower deliveries, like a conductor tuning an orchestra before the guests arrived. But this morning, as I moved through the marble foyer, I felt it. A current in the air. Something was off. Ina trailed behind me with her tablet, double-checking the system updates. She paused near the mirrored hallway and squinted at the screen. Did you approve the white gardenias for next weekend's VIP? She asked. No, I replied. I haven't touched next weekend's calendar. Her eyebrows pulled together. Well, someone did. The request is in, along with ice sculptures, imported candles from Provence, and a special sound permit for live music. I walked over, scanned the entry. Client name, SC3 initials, that instantly tightened something in my chest. She wouldn't, I said, more to myself than her. Ina tilted her head. She might. We headed straight to the booking records in the back office. I logged in, bypassed the third-party event manager system, and there it was. Somerset Grand Lux package, booked via external agency. Date, Serene's birthday weekend. No phone call, no email, no heads up. She booked my venue like it was a hotel room, like I was a stranger. She's trying to force your hand, Ina said quietly. If the party's already moving forward, you'll look petty canceling it. It was smart. Desperate, but smart. I didn't speak. I opened the security camera archive from the evening before, and there she was. Serene. In heels far too high for cobblestone, strutting across my ballroom like it was her stage. Laughing, gesturing, talking animatedly to a wedding planner I didn't recognize. Her hands flailed dramatically as she pointed toward the terrace, spinning in a full circle to show off the vibe. She's acting like she already owns the damn place, Ina muttered. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms. My eyes didn't leave the screen. She thinks I won't touch her in public. Ina stayed silent, knowing better than to interrupt that kind of stillness. She thought this was a game of social image, optics, and passive-aggressive elegance. But she was playing in my backyard now, and in my backyard, the rules were different. Don't cancel anything, I said finally. Not yet. Ina gave me a long look. You're letting her go through with it? I'm letting her bury herself. I opened a blank folder on my desktop. SC, unauthorized booking, then a subfolder, communications, document everything. She wants this party to be her crowning moment, I said, eyes narrowing. Let's make sure she earns every inch of it. Ina smirked. You want a paper trail? I want a mountain. We walked back out to the foyer. Staff were setting up for a bridal brunch, unaware of the war quietly unfolding behind the scenes. This was no longer about candles or contracts. This wasn't about a birthday. This was about who owns the name on the gate. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was working from my home office, windows cracked open just enough to let in the scent of gardenia from the front yard. For once, I'd found rhythm again, sorting contracts, editing floor plans, sipping my second coffee in relative silence. Then my phone buzzed. Ina, you might want to check ballroom camera 3. It's happening. I didn't ask what she meant. I clicked into the live surveillance feed without hesitation. Somerset's ballroom flickered onto my screen, crystal chandeliers gleaming, gold-trimmed sconces casting soft light. And then I saw her. Serene. Storming across the floor in 5-inch stilettos, already mid-rant. "This is the color scheme? Are you serious right now? This looks like a middle school prom." She waved her arms at the decorator, who stood frozen next to a half-finished centerpiece. The florist beside her winced as Seren tore a rose from the arrangement and flung it to the floor. "You call this luxury? This is depressing. My followers are going to drag me for this." A young staffer walked by, arms full of linens. Serene snapped her fingers. Hey, linen girl, that's not the fabric I ordered. I swear, is anyone here literate?" The girl paused, startled. English clearly wasn't her first language. She gave a timid smile and kept walking. Seren rolled her eyes. "Unbelievable. You let amateurs run this place?" And then she did it. She grabbed a clipboard from the table, scanned it, and slammed it down hard enough that it flew off and clattered onto the marble floor. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. I just watched. That's when Ina stepped into frame, calm, spine straight, expression unreadable. "This is a private venue under contract," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Our team deserves to be treated with professional respect." Seren turned slowly, her eyes scanning Ina like she was a bug on a windshield. "Oh, please. Spare me the lecture. Do you even know who I am?" Ina didn't hesitate. "Do you?" For a beat, the room went still. Seren scoffed and turned away, muttering something about ungrateful staff and having my lawyer on speed dial. But I wasn't listening to her anymore. I'd heard all I needed. I leaned back in my chair, watching the final seconds of the footage as Seren stormed out of frame. I clicked rewind and played it again, then again, her voice, her face, her entitlement, all recorded. I minimized the video and opened a folder already waiting on my desktop. Incident response. Inside it was one file. Client Policy Section 3.2. Grounds for termination and ban. It was clear as day. Hostile behavior toward staff, defamation of venue, willful property disruption. All of it. Every checkbox. I clicked and dragged the video into the folder. She thought she was playing a private game of pretend, but she gave me everything I needed, without even realizing it. She gave me everything I needed, without even realizing it. 2 days later, the Somerset ballroom looked like a magazine spread. Fresh orchids lined the marble banisters. Golden chairs flanked ivory linens. The chandeliers sparkled like they knew what was coming. Serene waltzed through the arched entryway like a movie star on set, all hip sway and breathy laughter. Beckham trailed behind her, quietly attentive, but distant. His parents, Elowen and Winston Monroe, walked with slow, deliberate steps. You could tell they were the kind of people who measured rooms by how the air moved in them. Seren pointed at the grand staircase. "Isn't this perfect? It screams legacy." From my office upstairs, I watched everything through the security feed. Ina stood near the entrance, greeting them with flawless professionalism. She looked up briefly toward the camera and gave the slightest nod. Time. I adjusted the cuffs of my navy blazer, straightened my spine, and waited. Down below, Seren launched into one of her monologues. "The chandeliers? Imported from Austria, custom designed. The owner works with high-end clients. Very exclusive." Elowen tilted her head. "And who's the owner?" Seren smiled too wide. "We have connections." Winston folded his hands. "So you don't know?" Before she could fumble out another dodge, Ina stepped forward and pressed a button on her tablet. The ambient music cut. Silence blanketed the room, and I began to descend. My heels clicked against the marble steps, steady and sharp. Every eye turned. I paused at the halfway point, met Serene's gaze, and offered the faintest smile. Then I continued down. "Welcome to Somerset," I said, holding out my hand to Elowen. "I'm Maris Calder, the owner and creative director of this estate." Winston blinked. Elowen raised a brow, but her eyes flickered with interest, not offense. Serin. She looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. You own this place? She croaked. But you live in that tiny house. I turned to her, calm and clear. A smart businesswoman doesn't wear her assets on her sleeve. She builds them brick by brick and lets them speak for themselves. Elowen smiled slowly. How refreshing. I was beginning to think nobody under 60 believed in discretion anymore. Winston nodded. Impressive, Ms. Calder. Very impressive. Beckham looked at me with a different kind of expression now. Not pity, not confusion, recognition. Serin stood frozen, her mouth slightly open, trying to summon something to say. Nothing came. I didn't gloat. I didn't lean in. I simply turned to Ina. Please escort the Monroes to the East Terrace, I said. I'll join them shortly. Ina nodded and gestured gracefully toward the corridor. As they moved, Serin lingered behind, her breath shallow, fists clenched. I didn't even look at her when I passed. For the first time in my life, I didn't need them to clap. I had the floor. We moved through the terrace slowly, deliberate and unbothered. The Monroe family admired the grounds with a kind of practiced elegance, nodding thoughtfully, speaking sparingly. Elowen pulled me aside near the fountain, as Serin tried, and failed, to reinsert herself into the conversation. You built all of this? Elowen asked. From the ground up, I said. She took a breath and gave me a look only women with experience know how to give. An assessment and an affirmation all at once. You're exactly the kind of woman our family respects. Quiet strength. Real results. Serin's voice rang out from behind us. Wait, Elowen, can we talk? She sounded small. For the first time since childhood, she sounded like the younger sister she actually was. But Elowen didn't turn around. Winston approached a moment later, placing a firm hand on Beckham's shoulder. You may want to reconsider your priorities, he said to him plainly. Beckham looked at Serin, then at me. He didn't speak, but his silence said everything. It was a silence that didn't protect her. It exposed her. Serin broke down in the hallway as they walked away. She pressed her back against the mirrored wall and slid to the floor, her makeup smudging, her voice cracking in a half-sob. I didn't stop. I didn't gloat. I walked right past her, head high, heels steady, pulse unreadable. That night, I returned to my home and turned every light off except the kitchen. The silence was different now. It wasn't empty. It was earned. I was sipping tea when my phone buzzed. A single text from my father. Can we talk? I hesitated, then hit call. He answered immediately. Hi, Princess. I didn't reply. I just think, maybe don't push things further, okay? It's still her birthday week. That was it. That was the thing he needed to say. Not, I'm proud of you, not. You handled that with grace. Just, don't make waves. It's her week. I laughed quietly into the phone. I stood there, I said. I stood right in front of you all, and you still didn't see me. He sighed. It's not like that. It is exactly like that, I said. It always has been. Look, we just want the family to stay. Intact? I cut in. It's never been intact. It's been built around Serin like a house of cards. He didn't deny it. I'm not mad, I said, suddenly calm. I'm just done. He paused. You don't mean that. I do. I hung up. Then I slid the phone into the drawer beside my sink and closed it gently. Outside, the lights of New Orleans blinked against the darkness. Distant music floated in from a jazz bar a few streets away, the kind of song that makes you ache and breathe at the same time. I watched it all, not waiting for someone to show up, not hoping someone would call back, just breathing. I didn't lose my family. I just stopped asking them to show up. 2 weeks passed, no headlines, no apology tour, just quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't echo. It settled. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sorting contracts and sipping lukewarm coffee when I noticed the email. Subject line: I'm sorry. From Martin Calder. I clicked it before I could talk myself out of it. You were right. I should have stood up. I'm sorry. Dad. That was it. No buts. No passive-aggressive deflection. No, but you know how your sister is. Just a single sentence. Late, but clean. I read it 5 times. Then I deleted it. But I smiled when I did. Somerset hadn't slowed down. If anything, it was surging. We had 3 weddings booked for the next month, 2 corporate galas, and a high-profile fundraiser that had local news sniffing around. Ina was now fielding requests from planners in 4 different states. She walked into my office with her usual tablet in hand. "We've got a request from Elowen Monroe's niece," she said, tapping. "She asked for you directly." "Of course she did," I said. "We'll take good care of her." I meant it. That same day, my phone lit up with a push notification from a wedding industry blog. Influencer event canceled. Somerset denies involvement. Speculation mounts. And then, are these luxury events just for show? Inside the collapse of a brand. They didn't mention her name outright, but I didn't need them to. Later that evening, out of pure curiosity, I checked Serene's socials. Her latest video was still up, but the energy was different. Muted lighting, no makeup, no background music. Comments turned off. She stared into the camera for almost 2 full minutes before speaking. I didn't watch all of it. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't need to. There was no satisfaction, no anger, no fire in my chest. Just air. I closed the app, put my phone face down, and walked outside with a glass of wine. The porch was warm, washed in the orange glow of the setting sun. The street was quiet, except for the rustle of wind through the live oaks. I drove past my parents' house that morning, slowed down for half a second, didn't stop. Not because I was bitter, because I didn't feel the pull anymore. I used to think peace came when people apologized, when the scales finally tipped back in your favor, when the villains got exposed and the family admitted they were wrong. But peace is quieter than that. Peace is walking away when no one asks you to. Peace is deleting the message without replying. Peace is saying no and not explaining why. I took a sip of wine. The night wrapped around me like a soft exhale. And maybe that's the real revenge. Not winning, but walking away clean. You know, if there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that peace doesn't come when people finally treat you right. It comes when you start treating yourself like you matter. For years, I thought loyalty meant silence. That being a good daughter, a good sister, meant making myself smaller just so others could shine. But the truth is, shrinking never saved anyone. You can love your family and still draw a line. You can walk away without hating them. And you can stop chasing validation from people who never bothered to look at you clearly. I didn't win by being louder. I won by finally listening to myself. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in your own story? Have you ever carried guilt that was never yours to begin with? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your truth. And hey, if this story hit home for you, type 1, or let me know where you're watching from. If you didn't connect with it, that's okay too. Drop a comment and tell me why. Was it the message, the pace, the ending? This channel is all about real stories for real people. So if you want more honest, emotional storytelling like this, don't forget to subscribe. You never know. The next story might be the one that finally puts your feelings into words. Thanks for spending your time here. See you in the next one.